Aishwarya T and Elijah R. Biju, and Saubhatika Suresh. Kind reminder, the presenters are requested to be seated on the dais. Yes. The second session is going to start. Request Nagini Rajpal, Trinity.
May we ask other presenters to be on the line? Yeah, I know. There's two papers, right? I mean,
ആപ്പിന്റെ പാസ്വേഡ് കിട്ടാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ടായിരുന്നു. ഓക്കെ ശരി ശരി.
and all the paper presenters, please be on the line. You all?
The session is starting. First, I invite Anuja K. and Vishnu V. Kumar, postgraduate scholars and research interns from the Center for Migration Policy and Inclusive Governance, School of International Relations and Politics. They will present a case study on combating wage cut among migrant workers in Athinapura, Kottayam, Kerala. Before we begin, I would like to outline the timing instructions for each presenter. First warning bell will ring at 8 minutes. Second warning bell with two rings will follow at 10 minutes. Final warning bell will sound at 11 minutes.
Good afternoon to all. Um, our presentation being on the topic combating waste, an advocacy case study of migrant workers in Adapura, Kottayam, Kerala. So the reason for selecting this topic itself was because, as we all know, Kerala has a migrant work population of around 3 million, and with a such huge workforce, such huge workforce, there are much more real concerns and issues that they face, and we need to identify them. So that's why we choose this topic. And our Center for Migration Policy and Inclusive Governance, conducts regular studies and audits, and has visited all the 14 districts of Kerala itself, and has made relevant studies regarding this, and has made significant outcomes. And we as research interns of that institution have made this advocacy study for understanding specific the issue of waste of a nearby migrant worker, which requires significant understanding. So first, I would like to start off. First, I would like to start off by defining the idea of waste itself. So, this definition of waste has been given by the Economic Policy Institute of USA, think tank USA. So, they state waste the denial of wages or employee benefits that are rightfully owed to an employee, including priorities such as paying less than the minimum wage, not paying for all hours worked, withholding this or disqualifying employees to avoid paying benefits or overtime. So this is the definition we can find in the context of US, because in India we can't find such a definition of wastage itself. So that's why I choose this. Um, Next, I would like to talk about the objectives of our study. Main objective of study is first is to highlight the issue of wastage among the migrant workers. Second, is to illustrate the socio-economic challenges faced by the migrant workers itself. Then, for analyzing the existing gaps in the labor law enforcement and providing solutions for it. We also try to showcase the role of research and advocacy in addressing the issue of waste, which we have managed to study itself. Then we present a model for the stakeholder engagement by participating in the relevant organizations that are we needed to be a part of this part of addressing this issue. Then we also talk about building awareness for policies change side. Then we also talk about future interventions we need to plan out to make relevant changes. Then I would like to showcase the and interview we have conducted uh, of this migrant worker. So we will listen to it to see what he asks. इतना दिन से तुम्हारा एक पैसा दिया
anti the ensuring the target the patient is some is capable take is एक तारीख को तैयार
So, this is the interview we have conducted. So, it was employee it was slavery so mainly that what we have understood from this is that the promised wage was 810 rupees per day as we promised to him. But the actual wage he got was 700 per day. So this is the clear theft of wage that clear case of wage that we have identified here. And he worked there for a period of 8 months. And he had an outstanding of 24,700. Out of which 14,700 was given. But the 10,000 was promised to be paid. They paid on September 15, 2024. But still, the amount has not been given. So we made this receive letter and send it to the respective authorities to understand. Now I would like to invite my talk about the
So in recent years, Dentex has gained recognition as a critical sector due to its direct implications for economic inequality, labor rights, and social justice. However, despite this growing recognition, the lack of universal, accepted, or comprehensive legal definitions hampers the effort to address the issue effectively. This gap in definition and recognition creates significant challenges in combating wage theft, ranging from underreporting to weak enforcement of labor laws. At the international level, institutions like the International Labour Organizations play a pivotal role in setting labor standards and addressing exploitative practices. However, the ILO does not explicitly define wage theft as a standalone term in its official documentation. This absence of direct definition contrasts with the incorporation of wage theft related concepts through its conventions, the Convention number 95 focusing on ensuring timely and full payment of wages, prohibiting practices like unlawful deductions, delayed payments, and arbitrary non-payment. The ILO Convention number 3, 131 established the need for fair compensation, ensuring workers are paid at least the legally stipulated minimum wages. While these conventions indirectly cover the aspect of wage theft, the lack of comprehensive and explicit legal framework or definitions results in fragmented and implementation and enforcement. For example, violations such as underpayment, unpaid overtime, and misclassification of employees, which are core aspects of wage theft, often go unaddressed and under broader labor violation categories. The United Nations Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights also provides a framework for ensuring workers' rights. However, they similarly stop short of explicitly addressing wage theft. Instead, they emphasize the responsibility of a business to respect workers' rights, provide fair compensation, and avoid exploitative practices. This indirect approach limits the ability to hold perpetrators accountable and creates inconsistencies in addressing the issue broadly. At the national level, efforts to combat waste vary widely. A handful of countries have made strides in recognizing and addressing the issues, while many others lack a comprehensive framework. For example, in Australia, the Migration Amendments Strengthening Employment Compliance Act of 2024, in several states such as Victoria and Queensland, have criminalized the wage theft through explicit laws. These laws define wage theft as a deliberate underpayment of wages. In United Nations, United States, despite being one of the most affected countries, US lacks federal legal definitions of wage theft. Sometimes states have enacted laws to address specific practices like
unpaid overtime, or misclassification. This patchwork approach leads to significant disparities in protection and enforcement across the country. In India, with a large informal labor sector like India, wage theft is widespread but often overlooked. Uh, Although labor laws address issues like non-payment of wages, enforcement is heavy, particularly in informal and gig economies. The absence of clear legal definitions for wage theft have far-reaching implications. In any of our laws, minimum wages act, payment of wages like industry as code of wages, anything which is the wage theft is defined. One major consequence is underreporting and lack of awareness, particularly among workers in informal sectors who may not recognize wage theft or understand their rights. This is especially true for vulnerable groups such as migrants, women, and gig workers, who are disproportionately affected and often lack access to effective legal remedies. Additionally, the absence of universal definition leads to fragmented enforcement and agencies struggle to address wage theft comprehensively. By recognizing wage theft as distinctive issue and adopting robust legal and institutional framework, government and industry international bodies can ensure fair compensation for workers and promote economic justice. Without such efforts, wage theft will continue to undermine labor rights and perpetuate inequality.
So now I will be showing you through the suggestions and recommendations we have supported given here. So you can look at it. I don't have much time to explain. So these are the main suggestions we recommend. Um, as an aftermath of this advocacy intervention, the district officer of Kottayam visited this Adamura Cake Hall bakery and she directed the owner to pay Mr. Badruddin's remaining amount by December 10. So after that, I would like to invite to go the conclusion.
Federality's case highlights the systematic exploitation of interstate migrant workers in Kerala, emphasizing the urgent need for comprehensive reforms to safeguard their rights and dignity. Despite their vital role in the state's economy, these workers face poor workplace conditions, ineffective labor law enforcement, and inadequate support system. To address these challenges, rigorous implementation of labor laws, improved workplace standards, and accessible grievance mechanisms are essential. Empowering workers through education, legal aid, and language support can help them assert their rights and navigate complex bureaucratic systems. Policy makers, civil society, and employers must work together to ensure fairness and justice by prioritizing the welfare of migrant workers, enforcing ethical practices, and promoting inclusive reforms. These efforts are critical to creating a just and equitable environment where all workers are treated with equity and respect.
If there is any questions from the audience, you can ask to the presenter.
So I just have few observations. Okay. So first, I feel that so first is when you talk about the grievance and redressal mechanism. So who are you addressing to? Because they are also a part. Uh, so so as far as the grievance redressal mechanism is concerned, as you suggested, one of those methods, even if because there is no one who will be representing their voice and their concerns. So how far is the grievance redressal mechanism actually very important as far as suggestions are concerned? Second is I thought that there is one aspect of the trade unions which could have been touched upon and could have been dealt with because I feel that they are the ones who really would be addressing and representing the entire community and this entire migrant category. So if you could just incorporate that or have your suggestions regarding it.
Regarding these different mechanisms, as per the tool they represent them, So there are several NGOs who's working for them or these trade unions. So people who are very much interested and how to help them aid them in their legal proceedings, whether they have any wastage issues or any other inequality issues in their workplace. So we like to focus on much more on these ADR mechanisms in redressal in these issues, because in much of these situations, these migrant workers, they will not be able to afford this payment of a lawyer and fight in the court, and they are much not likely to go to the court. So if there is an ADR mechanism, they will be more comfortable. Just as you can, you saw that in that video, he's even hesitant to sit in front of the camera and to speak whatever he experienced in his life. So in such people from a very poor backward class to come forward to a court and fight for their rights is very it's not possible. So if it's a ADR mechanism or conciliation arbitration situation, they will feel much more comfortable. And your second question was about trade unions. In today's morning session, so I have explained that there are very mainstream trade unions to nowadays come forward to discuss their these migrant workers issues. Before it was not so widely popular. So now it's becoming more popular. They are incorporating their issues as well. So it's a very good initiative.
I have okay. I just wanted to know the model of stakeholder engagement that you had mentioned in the presentation.
Actually, collect the questions and then. This way, somebody. Yes. Anyone have questions? I just want to give a clarification. Uh, Initially, this was the AHUC union, with whom we were working very closely for the last 2 years. Attending their meeting and addressing migrant workers. So then we came to know about this, and we were able to go to some places and sit with them and discuss. But this is the first case which has found a solution. And it's a very tremendous activity that the Indian people are doing. One of them is advocate also. It's something he was about to come to this meeting, but he's not. He travels all around India, and this is a big kind of inspiration and support for us. And one has to also talk about the involvement of people like George Matthew from Bilbao. They're all very inspiring persons here. So they're kind of, and also Jayashree, who's the present Diego. She was here in the meeting with us. She's a PhD, and she's very much of the kind of inclination towards do something to the. And this is something that has done. So it is actually an institutional collaboration that it actually has to go. I think in that way, it's a kind of answer to what she has asking also.
I just want to discuss about the fieldwork strategy. We have to work on try with many people. So how much the process to build trust and ask how many fieldworks in place if you can elaborate something. I'm saying this is a very challenging fieldwork. So I just want to know about the strategy and success fieldworks in the field itself.
Strategy failures and how it actually works. Yes. Okay, very quickly, let me just comment. I think this is a very important innovation that you've done. And for the first time, probably also successful. My observation is, such kind of, deliberate underpayment is always rampant. And it's there not only for migrants, but it's there for just worker period. So there are redressal mechanisms are very low, let alone cases of success. My other concern is when you give the interviews, you should not disclose their face. So perhaps that's something that can be done next because that's the ethical aspect of it. But good job, good job. You have just 1 minute to respond because I think they are all getting very anxious for the next presentation.
Yes. So first regarding the stakeholder engagement, I think Sarah has already mentioned how many stakeholders have participated in it. So that's been answered. Now next, the strategic areas and process itself. I had to first make a face-to-face interview with the worker. Then I contacted him through phone and WhatsApp regarding his experiences and all. And we also conducted an interview of the owner itself to understand his perspective, and we forwarded his reply to the worker, and we collected both and presented it as such in the report. So we will explain it more in the report. So that's it.
Thank you. Now I am inviting our second participant, Ragini Rajpur, research scholar at Central University of Karnataka, will discuss the role of judiciary in protecting the health rights of industrial migrants, highlighting national legal frameworks, international obligations, and comparative judicial approaches. Over to you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ragini Rajpur. I'm a research scholar, as he said, at Central University of Kannada. I'm preparing paper. It is not yet published. It's a working paper. I'm doing this along with three other authors. One is a research scholar here, that is Ashwin. One is research scholar at my department, Krishna. And one is my supervisor, Dr. Basraj Kukukadi sir. So along with these three authors, we are preparing this paper. 90% of it is done. Some has been done. The topic of my presentation is the role of judiciary, not in our country itself, but in neighboring countries also. The role of judiciary in protecting the health rights of the interstate migrants. We have done some literature review and we have found that there has been literatures which have analyzed that how Indian judiciary has tried to protect the interests and rights of the, especially health care of the migrant workers. But there is no paper which is analyzing and comparing how we are trying to fulfill the international obligations and then analyzing it, how judiciary is trying to fulfill that through those international obligations. Also, there is no comparative analysis between the neighboring countries, how the judiciary of the neighboring countries are dealing with the health rights, health care of the interstate migrants as such, and there is no comparative analysis. So that's why we moved through this paper. The basic objective of this paper is to analyze if the Indian judiciary and the neighboring countries have addressed the health rights of the interstate migrants, and what can be learned through those international obligations as a judiciary and implement them in our judgments. And also, the objective is to analyze the regional judicial practices across the other neighboring countries and how can we strengthen the access to healthcare to those vulnerable populations. So for this research, I have opted document analysis and comparative analysis of the case laws, and also the document analysis of the legal framework that we have in the country and international convention. So basically, what exactly the interstate migrants face when they try to uh, have the access of the healthcare. First of all, language is one of the biggest barriers. Whenever they cross the borders of their states, they will feel after 25 kilometers, the dialect changes. After 60 kilometers, some language changes, right? So they face those barriers. Then also in our country, there is no uniform health insurance for the people. So that is we are trying through Ayushman Yojana, but that is not yet done. Uh, Four as on 4th of December only, the Parliament has issued a scheme, five schemes, saying that these schemes are meant for the migrant workers. Like lagging behind by talking about all this. So we have these basic five legal frameworks in India. We had inter
interstate migrant workmen. This was the basic act we had for the migrant workers of our country. This is the 1979 act, but in 2019 we have codified all the laws, including this one. So now we have Code of Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code of 2020, and Social Security Code of 2020, which covers the provisions of that Act 1979 Act. Then we have a e-Shram portal, which was issued by the government of India, so that we can register all the migrant workers and give them some facilities, either it is healthcare facility, social security facility, or other facilities. Then, as I told you, the government has issued some government schemes for skilled and unskilled workers, and they have included gig workers also, as we call them, platform workers like Zomato, Swiggy, Uber, people who are working there. I would like to take you a little deeper inside these laws, because if we are trying to analyze what judiciary has done, we should be knowing what they have to give protection to. We have Constitution of India, we have Article 21, but apart from that, what laws have legislation so that they can protect apart from the international law. So judiciary goes to international obligations when they don't have a national legislation. So when they don't have it, then only they will go for international obligations. So, and also, when they don't have national legislation, they will then go to Article 21, because Article 21 is like an umbrella. Everything can be sent there. So, that 1979 Act has Section 14, which is very important. It talks about displacement allowance. So if somebody is being displaced and whoever is employing them, we give them some kind of allowance if he is employing them for 50% of the first month's salary. For example, if it is 10,000, then 50% of that will be given apart from the salary. So this was Section 14. Then we have Section 22, which talks about the return fare. In case of termination, also it is given if the person is injured during the employment, then also it is given to let him go back. So during the COVID period, when people were trying to go back, state government, like state judiciaries had to intervene to tell them, the employer, that you have the obligation to pay them to go for the return fare. You have to go, give that. But it was 2019 where our code was being made, uh, sorry, it was not implemented, it was made, our new labor code. So this act was also not there, the labor code was also not there. So anyway, so now we have this code of occupational safety and health and working conditions. So it talks about section 21, which says that we have to collect the statistics, we have to collect the, we have to make a portal so that we can have the record of the migrant workers. So through this next section, section 21, we have got each portal of 2021. So we have got that. Then chapter 11 of this code specifically talks about interstate migrants. So there are 92 sections in this chapter which talks about them specifically. So we have section 48 which talks about the licensing. So whoever is going to employ will first take a license from the government that I can employ these people who are migrants. Then we have section 59, which is saying that it is mandatory to register all the people if you are employing 10 plus interstate migrant workers in your company, corporation, or whatever it is. Then we have section 61, which talks about what the 1979 Act talked about, the return journey fare, the displacement fare. So it is saying you have to provide journey allowance to them wherever they are going, wherever they are coming. If they are employed at your company. Then we have section 62, which talks about public distribution system. It should be uniform throughout the country. If they are taking the benefit of PDS at their state, they should be able to take the benefit of PDS at their wherever they are going to work. Then we have a study of the interstate migrant workers. So a government and central government can fund, and it is written like that, that they can fund and they should be encouraging people to study about the interstate migrant workers. And then we have a toll free number also now. So So finally, now because we have done with the laws, we will deal on how judiciary has tried to influence. So during COVID period, you must have heard that the suo motu action was taken by Supreme Court, where when they saw the plight of the migrant workers, they were walking like anything from their working places to homes. So then Supreme Court had to intervene, and they came forward with their suo motu case. We'll tell you about some cases here, major cases which has changed and protected the healthcare rights of the migrant workers in our country. So the first one is 1996 case, Pachim Bangal case. This Pachim Bangal case happened because one worker fell from a train and he had got head injuries and got brain damage. So when he went to the hospital, six hospitals denied treatment to him, saying that we don't have facilities, we don't have medicine like that. So the Supreme Court intervened and said that every person, every worker has the right to emergency medical treatment as a right to life, which falls under Article 21. Then we have Mohinder Singh case, 1997. Sorry, state of Punjab versus Mohinder Singh. So this person was said that our state, Punjab doesn't have a hospital beds empty, so you go to some other state. So he went. How many minutes? Sorry. Uh, So he went to some other state. So he said that okay, because you did not provide me beds, at least provide me compensation because I went to other state. So then the Supreme Court said that state has the obligation to maintain healthcare infrastructure. He was denied bed because it was not available in the state of Punjab. So then he went to other state. Then we have PUCL case, what is 2000 Union of India 2003 case. So this is a major landmark case. It talked about midday meal. So along with this midday meal, they also talked about right to life. Also includes this healthcare. Also includes nutrition. Also health. Also. So not only children, everybody who is vulnerable, including the migrants, has this right to have healthy nutrition. Then we have Bandhwa Mukti Mukti Bandhwa Mukti Morcha. This is 1980 case. It talks about people who are they talked about that debt the wage theft case, right? So like that, a person who are working in mines, bricklines, so they are like bound in a cycle of debt. So what the person will say, okay, if you want 10,000, take it and work for me free for the next month. So this cycle will continue. So this to break this cycle of bondage, this case happened and they so Supreme Court said that they are protected against the cycle of debt under Article 21. So this case number 5 is a recent case which happened as I told you during COVID when Supreme Court intervened and said that every person has the right for food, shelter, and medical assistance. We have some state cases as well when they realize that during COVID that we have some a state has some obligation. So it talked about food, shelter, medical care, health care to homeless people, to migrants, and to women migrants who for maternity benefits. And wherever the construction is happening, Andhra Pradesh High Court said that if it is happening in your state, in your district, you have to provide the healthcare infrastructure.
Thank you for finding.
That's right. This is a song by Stanson. It talked about one-way tickets, how people from Nigeria are going to for the country. And based on that song, many other artists have painted some artworks. So these are basic international organizations that we have. UNICEF and ICISA can continue for 90 minutes. It talks about that healthcare should be a fundamental right and provided by every country. Then ILO definition talks about the migrants, how what kind of rights should be provided to them. And we have international one related international convention that we have. International Convention on the Protection of Rights of the Migrant Workers and the members of their family as well. So this is given to not only the migrant workers but their family should be also included when the healthcare is being given to them. Because with them, they are also suffering, right? Be it if they are at home or even if they are being carried along with them, then they are suffering. So they should also be, so Article 20 talks about that. They should be also given. Then locally, we have, not locally, in the South Asian region, we have SAARC and Asians. They talks about the healthcare rights and family access, timely access to immediate healthcare basic needs that we should be given free. So during this period, we read.
We are short of time. We have the last class.
Okay. I have also covered some international cases, I mean, of the neighboring countries. So, during the 1999, Bangladesh had seen a like blunt, what do you call it, a flood of slums in their country. So, to eradicate that, they came up with a scheme that Hore Fera means go back to your home, your own villages, like come back, return policy. But people protested against it, saying that we have a right to live in those shelter slums. So because of this, the case came up saying that the this wholesale eviction cannot happen until and unless state is giving any resettlement. So sorry I took so much of the time. Right. So, yes, how ministry has tried to integrate the national legislations, international obligations, and maintain the protection of the healthcare rights of the interstate migrant workers. Thank you so much.
That's now open for questions. Hi. I just want to add a few points because I'm coming from law background and some of the cases which you moved on were not directly related to migrants or health either of both. For example, Bangladeshi was refers to those people whose parents have taken death and in case they were for the children or generations need to pay for the same and if you go for a similar death, in that case the court into other sort of things. And also when it comes to the question of cherry picking of courts cases by court, it's very cherry picking. Why we say out of 20, we cherry pick 4 and 5, while the court has done 12, and we prove to be it is a judicial activism. While on the other hand, I can point towards 30 more cases, while the court itself failed in the what in their in all rights of laborers or migrants in favor of big corporations or what we say modern neoliberal economy. So this very must be a little more cautious for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, questions?
All right. So yeah, thank you. That's actually a very important area to look into judicial intervention and protection of migrant rights. Two suggestions. One is when you're doing a comparative framework, please put it in a comparative frame. So you it kind of helps because one of the USP of your paper is that you're doing a comparative work, right? That then in that case you will have to select some specific case laws related to all three or four countries that you're looking at. You can't do everything. You can enumerate the list of the legislation that's there pertaining to one country, two country, or any other country, but you nonetheless need to have it in a comparative frame. The second point is again, women are missing in this. Health of, so somewhere it would be interesting to bring in the gender component here. So it's a suggestion. You can look into it.
There were some cases.
I understand, because you probably didn't have the time, but you don't have to present everything. So 15 minutes or 12 minutes or 10 minutes, and you actually got more time, believe me. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am. Next, we are moving on to our next participant. I have a very brief comment to Ravini's paper. In the morning session, there was a reference about how certain policies are especially harmful at the time of crisis. If you are looking at the right to food related court interventions, then we also about certain other aspects. I just immediately came to my mind how this right to food judgment of the Rajasthan High Court that had a larger application across India. If you look at that 2001 judgment, how that particular positive initiative is read into our situation now. So judicial activism, even the fruits of judicial activism, even is getting into the, the application is getting lesser now about the food safety kind of situation that migrants are facing. I endorse the position by uh, by the chair because there should be very specific mention about children and women specifically. There also there will be kind of specific case applications where possible. Thank you.
Lovely. Do you want to answer the question? Um, good afternoon. So, I'm Aishwarya. I'm a PhD scholar from National Institute of Advanced Studies, Coimbatore. This presentation is also largely discussing the different policies, and I will try to review in policies in India and particularly Kerala. So, so it was during COVID-19 pandemic that I was curiously observing the issues of migrant laborers. That time we know how the civil society and state was critically encountered the issues of migrant labor. So when the lockdown was declared on March 24th, the migrant laborers they experienced severe challenges finding livelihood at their destination, and they wanted to return home, but they could not because the state borders were closed at that time. And still, migrant laborers they fled to their home despite the great distance they have to travel. They walked across the railway tracks, rode bicycles, and depended on trucks and buses. And and we know that how much the humiliating experiences, the level of humiliating experiences that they faced at the state borders, and the number of people who died during that time. And at that time, how the Supreme Court intervention happened, it's a series of events, and I will try to explain the trajectories of how the court has intervened these processes. On May 26th, the Supreme Court ordered the state and central government to provide a detailed report within a week because the issue of migrant laborers, it is not just a policy concern, but rather it's a human right violation. That's what they mentioned in the order. So another one on May 26th, another interim order from court, they mandated several measures. Um, no train and bus fare for migrant workers, provision of free food, and simplified registration for transportation, among other a lot of orders from Supreme Court for uh, gave to state governments. And on June 5th, 2020, the court again issued a key order addressing the challenges faced by migrant laborers. That was still locked down at that time, and it mandated the transportation of all stranded workers within 15 days and called for decentralized registration to local levels such as police station. And authorities were instructed to maintain detailed records of returning migrants, including their skills and employment history. And additionally, the court recommended withdrawing complaints filed under Section 51 of Disaster Management Act for lockdown violation. So, on the order issued on June 5th, court gave these much lot of orders to for the state governments to follow, and subsequently in July 31st, The code compelled and mandated all state government to register migrant laborers and provide essential relief facilities on a mandatory basis. And when lakhs of vulnerable population they face such crisis, an aspiring welfare state like India must take a decisive action. So, but the Supreme Court was instructed state government for the interventions, but did the country respond effectively? Where do we stand now? All these actions, did we read somewhere or a proper policy formation or did they act accordingly? So the initial that urgency that faded over time. Now we are the seriousness is waned and the situation remain largely unchanged. And the in this presentation, I am trying to review two major policies of India and especially focusing on Kerala's migrant policies. And so we know the Interstate Migrant Labor's Workmen Regulation and Employment Conditions of Service Act 79. The definition is any person who is recruited by or through a contractor in one state under an agreement or another agreement for employment in an establishment in another state, whether with or without the knowledge of principal employer in relation to such establishment. This definition of migrant labor itself has significant criticism. And for example, the Act places a heavy registration complaints burden on employee and contractors, discouraging formal hirings. And instead of protecting workers' rights, the complexity promote informal labor practices. So additionally, the Act narrowly focus on interstate migrants, excluding intrastate, and which is drafted in 79 fail to add the modern labor dynamics. For example, the previous percentage mentioned about the gig workers, platform workers, etc. The 79th Act was not included like that. And while it regulates employees, it neglect the critical aspect like healthcare, housing, social security, ration card portability, and overall living condition. And largely, the migrant laborers were unprotected under this act. And in 2020, the government consolidated significant labor laws, which under one umbrella, the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Condition Code (OSH Code) 2020, which combined 633 sections of 13 significant labor laws with 143 provisions. The part 2 of Chapter 11 of this code, it goes great deal into migrant labors only. The code mandated registration of migrant laborers by both central and state governments and create a database, electronic or otherwise, with self-declaration by the interstate migrant laborers themselves. The code also suggested that government create a scheme for migrant laborers to avail themselves the benefits of public distribution system, either in the source state or the destination state. It also mentioned creating a toll-free number for them and encouraging the government to conduct studies about interstate migrant laborers. A lot of provisions are there. Look at the definition of the interstate migrant laborers by OSH code. A person who is employed in an establishment and who has been recruited directly by the employer or indirectly through a contractor in one state for employment in such an establishment situated in another state, has come on his own from one state and obtained employment in an establishment of another state, or has subsequently changed the establishment within the destination state under an agreement or other agreement for such employment and draws wages not exceeding the amount of rupees 18,000 per month. So even though the new code addressed the shortcomings of 1971 legislation, the actual situation does not align with this initially. For example, the Act failed to account for the nature of work migrant workers typically undertake and imposing, they limit the monthly income of a migrant laborers limited to 18,000. For example, a labor from West Bengal earning 20K in Kerala is excluded from Act's protective provisions. Such workers still need the right of a migrant labor and earning a little higher should not disqualify him from doing that. And additionally, and most importantly, the OSH code excludes establishment with fewer than 10 minor labors, because mainly it's leaving many of the minor labors unprotected under this act. So subsequently, in 2021, NITI Aayog took an initiative to create a national action plan for minor labors. A dedicated subgroup was formed, comprising representatives from various ministries, migration expert NGOs, and civil society organizations. 2021 January, NITI Aayog has prepared the first draft policy on migrant labors. If it had been implemented, it could have been a milestone in India's migrant policies. But unfortunately, despite receiving positive feedback from experts, the draft was not published and the government chose not to proceed with it without providing any explanation of norms. And so this is the I'm discuss the two major uh, laws of labor laws, migrant laws in India. Now I am coming to Kerala. Kerala was one of the states who proactively responded during the COVID-19 pandemic. So here examining the major welfare programs and I classified the programs into five categories: insurance-related initiatives, literacy initiatives, registration-based interventions, housing and infrastructure, and education initiatives for migrant children. The Interstate Migrant Workers Welfare Scheme 2010 and the AWAS Insurance Scheme 2017 are two major initiatives aimed at providing financial security to migrant workers in Kerala. The schemes cover medical expense, accidents, and other assistance during times of need, reflecting Kerala. And however, only 58,888 workers are registered under the scheme. And for AWAS, 5 lakh 16,320 hours insurance cards are active now. Considering the number of migrant laborers in the state, like not yet, we don't know the exact number, but considering it's about 25 lakh, the numbers are not sufficient for registration purpose or even the insurance related. And this is another literacy program by Kerala to teach Malayalam to migrant workers to for their better communication skill and this is one is Changadi under Kerala State Literacy Mission Authority, and another one is Ananya Malayalam, which is launched in May 2023. So this is another initiative. The last population guest app and Aditi portal. Aditi April 2022, the Building and Other Construction Purpose Welfare Fund Board introduced the guest app for registration purpose, and Aditi portal was introduced in 2023 August. Housing and infrastructure ventures for migrant workers in Kerala. One is Apnagar and another one RA website. Current status is these are even though 1,459 buildings are registered, none of them are rented out to migrant workers. Only three migrant workers are registered there. Here comes the most important part, the education of migrant children. Children are the, migrant children are the most vulnerable population during migration process. And when migrant families choose to migrate, they didn't have some families, some single migrants leave their children in the source street while they bring their families, and sometimes the children studied at the destination state, sometimes they return back. So these are the two programs for migrant children. One is Project Roshni and another one special training centers. In 2023, 20,863 migrant children are enrolled in schools in Kerala, and Ernakulam district leading with 7,147 students. And a lot of debates are there for the that discuss the medium of instruction. Currently, it is Malayalam. And
Hello, could you please unmute the findings?
India need a comprehensive policy framework for migrant labour. After years of waiting, a draft was created in 2021. For unknown reason, it is not decided to move forward. And although policies exist in Kerala, uh, we are already discussed about the naming of guest workers. We are still underpaying. We are still underpaying migrant workers and calling them guest workers and inviting ignorance. It does not make any sense. If we are paying them equal as native worker, there is some meaningful. That's a meaning. This is actually meaningless thing. Not naming them just paying them less. And for example, I have one more point to make. The concern of Kerala policies. There are many programs, many policies, but without considering the situation of existing policies, we keep introducing new policies like AWAS insurance and different apps, different registration policies, and etc. We keep introducing more programs without strengthening the existing one. The crisis in education program, special training centers. Thank you.
It's now time for questions.
Actually, this is actually you were able to give a comprehensive description and analysis of programs, especially the last point that you made is very significant. Repetition of programs without all the own schemes you are seeing that. This actually leads us to the central question how it happens. It's very simple. Second one that you are talking about the message for the description and the details are very important. There also how this exclusion is happening through certain random brackets and other things is very significant. Third one is about when some amount of states, for example, 13 or more states, actually following these principles to their own practice. Then in the federal system, there's a question like whether that will automatically become the national practice. So this is something we need to. There is an opinion like that. I don't know the veracity of the whole system. But if you look at the trajectory, the Building and Other Construction Workers Act 1999, they have a provision even to have 2% of the entire project cost assessed to make social security arrangements for children's education and other benefits. So it's a very serious retreat from something that was already existing. And this is very important. Your presentation actually kind of instigated this kind of question. So you can give a kind of response to my concern about how comprehensively this will be applicated. What are the kind of issues that are discussed around the OSH among the labor rights people? That's my precise question. So what are these discussions around the OSH thing among the labor rights activists and legal persons and things like that?
If anyone have questions, you can ask it now. Nobody's chair can share the remarks.
I don't know much to say except, this paper actually has a potential of moving in a very different direction. We're basically starting off with, national level laws, and then you are bringing it down to the state level. So maybe you can see it in the lens, may or may not happen, because it's your PhD, to the federal structure itself. So, how does it look as in terms of Canada seems to be doing well, but what about other states? Right? And you kind of address most of it, but I'm curious about the data, the data itself, especially during, sure, government said there should be portal, but not all states implemented it. That was one of the reasons. They have the Shram portal, but Ishram, but Bengal has it. I don't know about other states. Kerala has it, it seems for sure. in a different domain. So where is the question, therefore, not for you, but to the larger domain, the question of migrant rights? Which subject is it? Where does it fall? So again, this is a PhD work, so maybe you can contemplate that for a later part. Okay, thank you. Okay, you should ask, respond to the question that.
So, in 2020, when the OSH score came, we were expecting that it will reduce all the shortcoming of the other board. But actually, it did not cover the shortcomings, and even at least this one, the OSH code exclude establishment with fewer than 10 migrant labors. Imagine our even in this district, in the state of Kerala, um, how many establishment are working below 10 with 10 migrant labor. A lot of them. So under this OSH criteria, the act won't be, we cannot be apply the act there. So mainly I feel that is the major issue with the OSH code.
Some in fact went out far to say that this can the need of the hour person is one and
Thank you, Sharon. Now I invite Elijah R. Viji and Saupadika Suresh, PhD scholars at St. Joseph University, Bangalore, will present a case study on the policy responses, living conditions, and drivers of interstate migration in Kerala.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear. Esteemed judges and dear participants, I'm a party from St. Joseph University, Bangalore. Firstly, I would like to express my gratitude towards MD University for acting on paper. Secondly, I would also like to acknowledge the absence of my co-partner in today's conference to so without I'd like to firstly, I'd like to give I'd like so firstly, I'd like to give a brief about migration, basically few definitions. Secondly, I would like to explain migration in India. Thirdly, I'd like to give an overview of migration in Kerala. Then, following on, I would like to provide certain push and pull factors uh, that led to migration in Kerala. Then I would like to brief on the challenges faced by the migrant laborers. Then I would also like to delve into the aspect of policy responses by the state government. Then I would like to conclude. So, as you all know, migration can be defined as the movement of people across a particular geography for various interrelated economic, political, and social reasons. So, according to Canadian American economist Ken Galbraith, he describes migration as the oldest action against poverty. So, throughout history, migration can be seen as a mechanism to overcome regional disparity and underdevelopment. So, India being the largest populated country in the world, with having around 1.44 billion people, with such huge population and diversity, the concept of migration has emerged as a vital uh, part of the country's economy and various articles of the Constitution, such as freedom of movement and liberty to take up any form of employment, has helped these migrants to migrate to different states in search of job, better employment, better wages. Similarly, international migration rates have increased significantly in recent years, rising from 30% in 2001 rising from 30% in 2001 to 45% in 2012. So there are numerous push and pull factors, uh, like economic and social motivations, such as higher wages, improved living conditions, and so on. So moving on, Kerala, a migrant destination. So when we look back into the history of the trends of migration to Kerala, we can see that Kerala was the highest standing out state. Like basically, it had the highest number of emigration rates. So uh, throughout the 1970s, 80s, and 1990s, the state saw a notable rise in population growth due to the international migration to different global regions, including the Gulf, Europe, Oceania, and North America over the last 50 years. So, one of the major disadvantages, I would say, caused by the increasing emigration um, is the demand for semi-skilled local laborers within the state. So the state has experienced a vital uh, decrease and a demand for such labor within the state. And there's also a positive fact about highest immigration rates. It has also helped the state repay highest remittances, which has helped in alleviating poverty and also helped in advancing education and health related outcomes. So moving on, so Kerala's initial migration patterns predominantly involved internal migration from neighboring states such as Tamil Nadu and Karnataka before the 1990s. And after the 1990s, the state has witnessed a consistent rise in long distance migration, basically from the eastern and northeastern regions. So, according to the GIFT um, survey, the Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation in the year 2013, um, and the 2011 census, so major migrants who come to Kerala are from West Bengal, which contributes to over 35.4%, followed by Odisha, 15.9%, Assam, 15.2%, Bihar, 12.7%, followed by Jharkhand, 9.2%, and various other states like Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka, 3.5% respectively. So on the whole, 90% of migrants originate from these five states: West Bengal, Odisha, Assam, Bihar, and Jharkhand. So, such such rise in the migration rates have contributed significantly towards Kerala's economy. And I would like to move on to the next topic, the drivers of migration. So there are two main aspects of drivers of migration. One is the push factor. One is the pull factor and one is the push factor. So the pull factors are shortage of labor force, as I explained earlier. Kerala was a high sending out state, sorry. Um, so, uh, the rise in the rates of emigration caused the state to demand for high labor force, especially in industries like construction and other labor-intensive industries. Secondly, Kerala has implemented certain policies which no other state has done, especially including the rights, the uh, welfare schemes of which advocates the rights of these immigrants. Thirdly, Kerala has been a good state where it has offered high wage rates. And lastly, it has also offered high standards of living conditions. And moving on to the push factors, basically states like West Bengal have lower standards of living and it also faces economic disparities. Not only West Bengal, other eastern and northeastern regions, they also face poor wages and social inequalities. Moving on. Okay. So I would like to move on to the living conditions of migrants in Kerala. Okay. I would like to move on to the economic, social, and living conditions of migration in Kerala. Uh, so, yeah. So over the years, due to the increase in interstate migration within the state, numerous research studies have been conducted to examine the living conditions as well as the economic and social cultural circumstances of migrant workers. So the Department of Labor and Rehabilitation, Government of Kerala 2017, reported that 42% of migrant workers live with seven or more individuals in group. This is a very concerning factor, which has also raised issues related to health, sanitation, health risk, and as most of you know that Kerala has been prone to many communicable diseases, and this factor has given a serious concern within the state. So nearly all migrant workers have access to toilets, but most of the person rely on communal facilities. And moreover, um, related to the social factor, the attitudes of local residents towards migrant workers in public transportation and other communal areas significantly influence the social integration journey of these laborers. As previously mentioned, much of the migration occurs due to economic necessity and pursuit of better opportunities. So, consequently, this serves as a measure of an individual's living circumstances. And according to the reports and analysis provided by Kyle, roughly 88% of migrant laborers believe that their financial situations improved after obtaining jobs in Kerala. So moving on, I'd like to uh, move on to certain policies given by state. Okay. So I would like to focus on one such policy named AWAS Health Insurance Scheme. So the AWAS Health Insurance Scheme, implemented in November 2017, pioneered by the insurance by the Kerala government, in order to enhance the insurance and the health factor of the migrants. It is beneficial to all migrant workmen employed within Kerala. It provides free medical treatment worth 15,000 per year, insurance coverage up to rupees 2 lakh for accidental death. So cashless medical treatment to beneficiaries through biometric cards. So the enrollment criteria is 18 to 60 years. Uh, and migrant services such as medical treatments, they can avail these services from all government hospitals and empaneled private hospitals across Kerala. So they've also opened up facilitation centers throughout the districts. And one concerning factor that most of the presenters here presented was how will it reach out to these people? So advertising of the same in their languages such as Oriya, Bengali, and Hindi. So it could also lead to social integration and many other schemes like Apna Ghar, um, which provides affordable housing for migrant workers. Over 640 workers can accommodate in a four-story building, and it is equipped with essential amenities like kitchen, restrooms, and recreational spaces. So I would like to conclude in few sentences. Other programs like Chengali scheme, which mainly enhances the literacy rates of these migrants, and other schemes like Roshni and all such schemes. So, in conclusion, when we look into all these policies made by Kerala in comparison to other states, I think Kerala is doing a great job, and there are certain aspects which Kerala, the government of Kerala can improve on. Basically, the social aspects of migrants. So where we were discussing about the term guest workers. So many of them were criticized, including me, were against the term. Yeah, yeah. So I would like to propose certain policies like integrating them into our social and cultural aspects, festivals, religious, and also respecting their traditions, their cultural factors, and also recognizing them as part of the society. Like most of the localites do not do that. I had a recent experience where people were catcalling and making fun of these migrants. So, in conclusion, um, despite therefore Kerala has the opportunity to improve certain current situation by revising existing policies and ensuring more robust implementation. Thank you.
The forum is now open for queries and feedback.
So I just have a few interactions to make. So when you're talking about the data regarding, the medical evidence from the different states, just I was curious to know about the source first. And second is that since we have kind of used the push and the pull theory, I really the question which I was kind of asking in the morning also leaders to particularly this that now we have to move beyond the push and the pull theory because there are various theories like we talk about why are these specific states, people from these specific states are coming because it is not just the pull and push theory, it is beyond that. So it's like the network theory, the solidarity theory, or when we talk about the cumulative causation theory. So all these theories are new theories which are emerging. As ma'am also mentioned that there have been, already in place. It's just that we need to put it accordingly. And also why these particularly why West Bengal, Bihar, Odisha exactly when you're naming. So is it because of the political economy of these states or particularly, that it's not just always the what do I say? It's not just the how they are attracting and giving better wages, but also the void in Kerala, that is being supplied through the labor supplied from these states. And also the void which is being created in West Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha, who is actually catering to that? Where is that labor coming from? So the shortages in those states, what is happening to the situation there? I just wanted a moment.
There is no more questions. The chair comments.
Can I answer this?
I don't have much to say. I think, when you talk about the drivers, basically see what drives migration. Uh, yeah, perhaps, we need to see from a perspective, which I say, from a societal perspective, what is it that is happening from below that is leading to this migration into a particular state, and not so much in another state. So I understand this is one of the cases which is very related to Kerala per se. But one just suggestion would be, um, you do focus on one or two schemes. Um, the question is how well are those schemes doing in the gamut of things, especially in the context of a time period. This is a larger work, and this is something that you might want to look at for to make a much more important case, especially related to Kerala and maybe perhaps vis-a-vis some other states as well. So what I'm trying to get at is maybe we can do a comparative one. Okay, thank you.
Going on answering your questions. Firstly, about the sources. So, most of the sources, like 95% of the sources, are taken from the government websites, such as Kerala Institute of Labor and Employment. Uh, then, in other government websites, like I mentioned earlier, labor and rehabilitation, and most of the information is from the website, the government website, labor and management. Moving on to the second question that you had asked, why is West Bengal the? Uh, can you please brief your question again? Like,
So I think that it is the major driver of migrant population?
Okay, so when we look into when we go back to 1950s, 60s, we can see that West Bengal was one of the richest cities in India during the British Raj, and it received a migration from other states. So it was one of the highest receiving migrant state back then. But due to certain policy failures and um, low aggregate productivity and poorly functioning labor markets, is why West Bengal has failed to provide opportunities and better standards of uh, economic inclusivity towards their own population. And I consider those factors as one of the main factors why the population is migrating to states like Kerala who offer over three times higher wages and other standards of living. And
Okay, just one thought I had. I mean, I know this is in the realm of migration. Have you read Atul Kohli?
no, I haven't heard.
Okay. I understand there's certain constraint. He was the first scholar to talk about crisis of governability, where he does a comparative study between Kerala, West Bengal, Bihar, and Gujarat, and saying what is really going on in these states. So, just having a particular perspective, a slightly different perspective would be helpful. Whatever you're saying still can be said, but differently, without necessarily echoing whatever, I mean, what you're trying to get at, right? Here you're not talking about law as such. Yes, you are, but much to a different lens. So, just a thought, something that, and he uses a term called crisis of governability. And exactly what he just said in relation to West Bengal, he makes a case vis-a-vis, let's say, Gujarat and why Kerala is doing. So he has a comparison between four states. He makes a comparison between four states.
And thank you for your suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you. We are moving to the last business stage of the session. I would like to invite Ananta Sunil, research and scholar and research intern from the Center for Migration Policy and Inclusive Governance, will share a field-based analysis on the gaps in policy implementation and their impact on interstate migrant workers' living conditions.
Hi, myself Ankush Will, currently studying as a second year master's student here in School of International Relations and Politics. And my paper is titled Gaps in Policy Implementation and the Impact on Interstate Migrant Workers Living Condition, a field-based analysis. As the topic suggests, it's a field-based analysis which I was working as a part of the National Research uh, Foundation project, which focused on access to healthcare of interstate migrant workers. And this paper is about one of the interventions we had made on behalf of that project, which was in a labor camp situated in the premises of Mahatma Gandhi University, and in this university itself. And this paper is quite developing, and it can be completed without incorporating the final results of that intervention, which is happening. And if we discuss a stage to present the paper, and as we have discussed many interventions made by my colleagues, as in the in the inaugural session, Dr. Bishilar has actually mentioned about the interventions which came came along with the project and its activities. And uh, let me move on to my paper or sharing of my fieldwork. Uh, yeah, uh, in the case of migrant workers, in providing working conditions, the objective should be to ensure adequate and decent housing and working conditions. But when we look to many cases, we can see that uh, better housing conditions and better facilities related to housing are absent with migrant workers. They are forced to live in congested conditions, uh, precarious conditions, and which they are forced to leave. And along with that, creation of worker-friendly worker-friendly working conditions, which deserve considerable attention and considerable importance. And uh, if we provide considerable worker-friendly working conditions, along with that, we need to provide better housing, which is obligatory for corporate contractors as well as individual contractors. And since the arrival of industry migrant workers in Kerala, uh, they are experiencing precarious instances related to their living conditions. And this would be equated from extending to overcrowded houses to houses which are made of tin sheets or even containers which are used as a means to provide shelter to interstate migrant workers. And this ambiguous situation deserves special attention from the academia as well as from the government institution. And this paper intends to look, look that gap which has come in the back of policy implementation. And um, when the migrant workers come to the premises of Kerala or say any other states, they usually depend on the help of employers to provide them shelters. And these employers in turn will use or will depend on some mediators or brokers to arrange settlement for this interstate migrant workers. But in this case too, we can see that there are these mediators using their considerable influence or with a profit orientation or profit motivation. They just simply move these migrant workers to considerably worse living conditions, which a person can live efficient or properly because the situations may not work in the uh, favor of this workers. Moving to the case which we identified, as I mentioned in my introductory part, it's within the university premises. There's a labor camp. The labor camp consists of almost 90 plus workers who used to stay in container shelters made of containers. As we all know, container shelters, what we mean by containers. So used for exporting purposes, and this are gradually converted to this share providing center for migrant workers. And in this case too, we see that this labor camp consists of 6 compartments made up of these uh, containers and as well as of tin sheets. And these places is in fact similar to as gas chambers. It's immense humidity, and these workers are forced to stay in this uh, particular shelter. And in the case of university labor camp, as I was associating with the ANRF project as a field worker, I just found it that not only issue with the living condition, along with that, proper sanitation facilities was absent, proper ways to discharge waste was absent, proper drinking water was absent, and this can be equated theoretically as a state of exception, as Giorgio Agamben aptly portrayed it as a state of exception, and this exception and the subsequent concept of homosexual, in which individuals are turned to naked objects who are completely deprived of their rights. And this situation is also, we can find it with the interstate migrant workers of this particular labor camp situated at the premises of this university. And as a part of intervention from the project, we just formed a action committee or a group consisting of concerned officials from this university and um, actively discussed about what remedies can be done. When I was visiting the camp, a worker was bedridden, not a single one, 2 workers were bedridden. I asked them what happened. They randomly said that they were hit by fever. And this fever has it replicated from dengue. And this not a dengue fever. And this dengue fever, and for that, no medicines or no consultations with doctors or any sort of medicinal aids were not provided by the contractor. And these workers particularly are uh, deprived of their rights to consult doctor. And they can find any asylum in any government institutions, including the local PSC or the public health center available at the nearby premises. And this was a situation which I identified at the labor camp. And further, with this paper, I wish to identify and discuss the policy gap in recognizing the issue pertaining with migrant workers. Also, I wish to call intervention from the state parties for taking necessary steps in recognizing this issue. And as I said, this is a working paper, not yet completed. And considering the case of workers residing in the workplace, another case of work, this university labor camp, and the workers here are used for constructing a new building for the university inside the university itself, and these workers are chosen to stay in that labor camp, and uh, while providing this residence at the workplace, it's a workplace or the shelter near the workplace itself, it is mandatory that the employer should ensure the fundamental rights of the workers, especially in particular with the freedom of association. It should be recognized. And in the case of this particular labor camp, it is noted that this uh, this particular category of migrant workers are turned to be isolated group without any communication with any other people who work some who may not be familiar with them in the premises of university, and they are residing in this labor camp isolated, and nobody is intervening in the affairs of them, and uh, just as normal life as they thought. And we can see that many provisions recognized by ILO and especially not only ILO, the fundamental rights enshrined in the Constitution, is a violated in the case of migrant workers. There are severe issues which we are facing, which we are visualizing recently. Let's take the example of a murder of a migrant worker in uh, Allington, Kannur, a few days before. We all may be familiar with that news in especially with the social media or newspapers. But we aren't discussing about the fact that these migrant workers face precarious issues in their day-to-day life and day-to-day instances which they are encountering. In the basic necessity or the basic need of providing shelter, they are facing this uh, situation of exception. To be frank, it's a situation of exception, and as they have the right to have a dignified life, like Hannah Arendt describes about right to have rights. They are completely neglected from the category of to say an extent they are completely neglected from the category of considering as human beings. And okay. I would restrict, and this, as I said, this paper intends to cover the policy gap. And as we see that when we inquire this matter in the local government institution, it was not surprising that no actions were undertaken by them to curtail the situation. They don't have the exact list of interstate migrant workers who are residing in a particular panchayat or a particular local body. And this is also the issue which need to be stressed. And when we consulted to the parties associated with the construction of the building in the university premises, they said that these workers aren't permanent. They came for a short term, and after that they uh, moved to another places in search of their work. And when I personally interviewed few workers in that labor camp, some say that they are okay with these living conditions. And this is another thought-provoking instance which we can assume that they aren't aware about the rights which they have in this country. I say this country, the country with which country which gives the utmost importance to human rights and human values. And in this country, certain population aren't aware about the rights which they have and the rights which is enshrined in the constitution itself. And subsequent type of information is also given by so recorded in the interview, which mentions that they go better facilities. One among the respondents of my interview say that they got better facilities than Kerala in Mumbai and Delhi, which is much more populous when we consider in the realm of urbanization, which is much more populous and much more developed. Okay, one second, I will complete. Developed than Kerala, and Kerala with its uh, fame of giving better hospitality to the visitors who come to Kerala, and is facing an acute exception in the case of migrant workers. And I would stop here. Now the floor is open for questions. I think there are no questions, so it's time for chair's remarks.
Do you want me to be gentle or do you want me to be critical?
As you wish.
As I wish. Okay. First and foremost, do not bring a gunman here. Do not bring a gunman here. Okay? Because I'll tell you why. Because when we talk about state of exception, it has a context to it. Right? So it makes it really mudding about the whole concept of homosexualhood. So perhaps that's something you might want to relook at it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because when we talk about gaps, there has to be your project is very interesting because here you are talking about, at least from the abstract, you talk about distribution of water and SDGs.
Yes.
You're actually talking about SDGs, so which makes it very interesting. So deal with that because if SDG is something that the government of India is also trying to look at, right?
Yes.
So there is a focus more on central level or federal level, whatever we want to call it, to look into these SDGs in the domain of rights, right? So of course it helps because Kerala is one step ahead. So Kerala is, as a state does not have anything to worry about. But in terms of gap, then the question is where is the gap in terms of public policy implementation, right? So why is it that some states, the question should be, why is it that some states are taking the initiative? Because based on what I heard from all of you, the commonality appears the state of Canada. And Canada is obviously adopting a model which is a role model for the entire country. Yet other states are falling behind. So the question therefore should be that why is it that some states do not have the incentive to accord the similar kind of rights that has been given and provided by some other states, right?